The most horrific private practices of Caligula the Insane. The bedroom door closes. A sound, quiet, deliberate, echoes through the marble corridors of the Palatine Hill. Inside, the Emperor of Rome stands alone with his sister. Not as siblings, not as family, as lovers. The servants know. They have seen the way his hand lingers on her wrist, the way her eyes drop when he enters the room. They have heard the laughter behind locked doors, the kind that twists the stomach of anyone who dares to listen. But no one speaks. To speak is to die. This is Rome, 37 AD. The most powerful empire on earth is ruled by a man who believes he is a god. His name is Gaius Julius Caesar Augustus Germanicus. History will remember him by a nickname whispered in terror: Caligula, Little Boot. He has been emperor for less than a year. Already he has ordered senators to worship him. He has dressed his horse in jewels and silk, appointed it to the Senate. He has built a bridge across the Bay of Naples, just to ride across it, wearing the armor of Alexander the Great. But these are the public madnesses. What he does in private is something else entirely. What he does behind closed doors will stain the annals of history with blood, depravity, and a kind of cruelty so intimate, so personal, that even Rome, a city built on gladiatorial slaughter, will recoil in horror. The question is not whether Caligula was insane. The question is, what kind of monster did Rome create? He was not always a monster. Once he was beloved. Gaius Julius Caesar was born into the purple, into the blood-soaked dynasty of the Julio-Claudians, the family that ruled Rome with an iron fist wrapped in silk. His father, Germanicus, was a war hero, a general so admired that soldiers wept at the sound of his name. His mother, Agrippina the Elder, was the granddaughter of Augustus, the first emperor, a woman of fierce pride and unbreakable will. As a child, Gaius followed his father's legions to the Rhine frontier. The soldiers adored him. They dressed him in miniature military boots, caligae, and the nickname stuck: Caligula, where the emperor had retreated into his final years of paranoia and depravity. The stories from Capri were whispered in the darkest corners of Rome. Stories of children, of pools, of screams that echoed across the cliffs before being swallowed by the sea. Caligula lived there for 6 years. What he saw, what he learned, what was done to him, no record survives. But when Tiberius died in 37 AD, smothered with a pillow, some say by Caligula himself, the young man who emerged from Capri was not the golden prince who had entered. He was something else. The Senate hailed him as emperor. Rome erupted in celebration. The tyrant was dead. The beloved son of Germanicus would restore the Republic's glory. For 7 months he did. He recalled exiles. He abolished treason trials. He hosted games, distributed money, honored his father's memory. Rome loved him. Then, in October of 37 AD, Caligula fell ill. For days he burned with fever. The physicians whispered that he would not survive. The entire city held its breath. When the fever broke, Caligula opened his eyes. But the man who woke was not the man who had fallen asleep. Something inside him had changed. The senators noticed it first. The way his gaze no longer met theirs, but passed through them, as if they were ghosts. The way he laughed at nothing. The way he would stop mid-sentence and stare at the ceiling, listening to voices only he could hear. And then, the killings began. His co-heir, Tiberius Gemellus, a boy of 17, was forced to cut his own throat. His father-in-law executed for imagined treason. His grandmother denied food until she starved. But these were political murders, expected, almost normal in the viper's nest of Roman power. What came next was not political. It was personal. It was intimate. It was the beginning of something Rome had never seen before. The palace is silent tonight, too silent. The Praetorian guards stand outside the imperial chambers, their faces carved from stone. They have learned not to hear, not to see. not to know. Inside, lamplight flickers across frescoed walls. The scent of perfumed oil hangs heavy in the air, myrrh and cinnamon, imported from Egypt at ruinous cost. On a couch draped, servants know. Of course they know. They change the sheets. They see the bruises on Drusilla's wrists that she tries to hide beneath her stola. They hear her crying in the gardens at dawn, when she thinks no one is listening. But they say nothing. To speak is to be fed to the dogs, literally. Caligula has developed a taste for watching his hunting hounds tear human flesh. He sits in the arena and applauds when the screaming stops. Drusilla is not the only victim of his obsession. His other sisters, Agrippina and Julia Livilla, are paraded before visiting dignitaries like courtesans. Caligula forces them to recline at banquets beside foreign kings and senators, his hand resting possessively on their shoulders. He watches the men's eyes. He smiles when they look away in shame. "They are goddesses," he announces to the Senate. "Divine blood runs through their veins. To not worship them is treason." He has their images struck onto coins. He builds temples in their honor. He orders public prayers to be spoken in their names. And at night, he takes them to his bed, one by one, sometimes together. The historian Suetonius will later write that Caligula lived in habitual incest with all his sisters. The Senate will call it slander, propaganda, exaggeration, but the servants know the truth. So do the Praetorian guards who stand watch outside the door, their knuckles white around their spear shafts, their jaws clenched in silent rage and helplessness. And so does Drusilla. But incest is not Caligula's only private sin. There are the games, not the public spectacles in the Colosseum, not the chariot races or gladiatorial combats that Rome adores. These are games played in the palace dungeons, in rooms beneath the marble floors where no one can hear the screaming. He collects people, beautiful people, young people, senators' sons, noble women, slaves. It does not matter. What matters is that they are lovely and that they are terrified. He has them brought to him in the night. Sometimes he simply stares at them, his head tilted, his expression utterly blank. Other times he touches them, slowly, methodically, watching their faces contort with fear and confusion. "Do you know what a god can do?" he whispers. They do not answer. They have learned that answering is dangerous. He does not renowned for her virtue, her piety, her devotion to her husband and children. Caligula sends for her at midnight. Her husband, a man of significant rank, begs her not to go. He knows what happens to women who enter the emperor's private chambers. He knows about the bruises, the blood, the vacant stares of those who return. But to refuse is to condemn the entire family. So Ennia goes. She walks through the marble corridors, flanked by Praetorian guards. Her hands tremble. Her breathing is shallow. She has prepared herself for violation. She has prayed to Vesta, goddess of the hearth, for strength. The door opens. Caligula sits on a gilded throne, dressed in the robes of Jupiter, king of the gods. Lightning bolts are embroidered across his chest in gold thread. On his head, a laurel crown. He does not rise. "Come here," he says. She approaches. Her legs barely hold her. He studies her face for a long moment. Then he smiles. "Your husband loves you," he says. "Yes, Caesar. He would die for you." "Yes, Caesar." "Good." He gestures. The guards seize her. What happens next is not recorded. Ennia Drusilla returns to her home 3 hours later. She does not speak. She does not cry. She walks to her bedroom, lies down, and dies. The physicians call it heart failure. Her husband knows better. But Drusilla is different. She is not just a victim. She is his. He elevates her above all others. He drafts a will, naming her as his heir. Unheard of in Rome, where women cannot rule. He swears oaths in her name. He builds her a palace of her own on the Palatine Hill, filled with treasures looted from across the empire. "I will make you a goddess," he tells her. She says nothing. She has learned that silence is the only safe response. But in June of 38 AD, barely a year into Caligula's reign, Drusilla falls ill. A fever, sudden and savage. The physicians work frantically. Caligula refuses to leave her side. He holds her hand. He weeps. He prays to gods he claims to outrank. She dies in his arms. And something inside Caligula, already fractured, already twisted, shatters completely. Rome has never seen. It is a beginning. He has Drusilla deified, not as a minor household goddess, but as Panthea, all goddess. Temples are erected in her honor across the empire. Her image is carved in marble, cast in gold, painted on the walls of every public building. Priests are appointed to her cult. Sacrifices are made in her name. And Caligula declares that anyone who does not worship his dead sister will be executed. The Senate complies. What choice do they have? But in the privacy of their homes, senators whisper. They speak of madness, of a mind broken beyond repair, of an emperor who has crossed a line from which there is no return. They are right. After Drusilla's death, Caligula's depravities escalate. He no longer hides them. He celebrates them. He begins appearing in public dressed as Venus, the goddess of love, complete with wig, gown, and painted face. He forces senators to attend banquets where he reclines in women's clothing, giggling and flirting with their husbands. Those who refuse to laugh are dragged away. Some are beheaded, others are crucified. A few are thrown to the beasts in the arena, their crime announced to the cheering crowd. Disrespecting the divine emperor. He turns the palace into a brothel. Noble women, wives of senators, daughters of patrician families, are summoned and forced to service foreign dignitaries while Caligula watches. He takes notes. He rates their performances. He sends invoices to their husbands, charging them for the privilege of their wives entertaining the emperor's guests. The humiliation is the point. One senator, a man named Sextus Papinius, is ordered to bring his wife to the palace. When he refuses, Caligula has him stripped naked and beaten in the forum. His wife is raped by the Praetorian Guard, all 12 of them, one after another, while Caligula applauds. Papinius's young son witnesses it all. The boy is 11 years old. Caligula notices him crying. He walks over, kneels down, and whispers in the child's ear, "Don't worry. You're next." The boy is never seen again. But it is not only the nobility who suffer. The common people, the plebs, who once adored him, now live in terror. Caligula has developed a fascination with pain. He had watched their children die. He forces children to watch their parents. He believes that suffering is art, and he is the greatest artist Rome has ever known. The palace itself becomes a labyrinth of horror. Visitors report strange sounds at night, weeping, screaming, the shuffle of feet in empty corridors. Some say the ghosts of Caligula's victims haunt the Palatine Hill, that the marble floors are stained with blood no amount of scrubbing can remove. But these are not ghosts. These are the living. Caligula has begun collecting people, not for sex, not for torture, but for company. He keeps them in hidden rooms, chained to walls, fed just enough to survive. He visits them when he cannot sleep, which is often. He talks to them for hours about his divinity, about his plans to move the capital to Alexandria, about his horse Incitatus, who he insists is the only honest creature in Rome. The prisoners are not allowed to respond. They are only allowed to listen. If they fall asleep, they are beaten. If they die, they are replaced. One prisoner, a former senator named Lucius Vitellius, survives for 11 months in one of these rooms. When he is finally released, Caligula grows bored. He is unrecognizable. His hair is white. His eyes are vacant. He cannot speak. He lives for 3 more weeks, rocking back and forth in his home, muttering the same phrase over and over. He is not human. He is not human. He is not human. Then his heart simply stops. By the year 40 AD, Rome is a city of whispers and shadows. The Senate meets in terror. Conspiracies form and dissolve like smoke. Everyone knows that Caligula must be stopped, but no one dares move first. The Praetorian Guard watches, waits. They have protected him. They have enabled him. They have stood outside his door while he violated everything Rome holds sacred. But even they have limits, and those limits are approaching fast. On January 24th, 41 AD, Caligula attends the Palatine Games. He is in high spirits. He has just ordered the execution of an entire family, grandparents, parents, children, because their young son mispronounced his name. The executions are scheduled late. They find the emperor's body sprawled in the dirt, his purple toga soaked black with blood, his divine face, so carefully painted each morning, now a ruin of flesh and bone. The assassins do not flee. They stand over the corpse, breathing hard, their hands red. It is done, Chaerea says. But it is not done, because back in the palace, Caligula's wife, Caesonia, sits in the imperial chambers with their infant daughter, Julia Drusilla. The Praetorian Guard finds them an hour later. The child is 1 year old. She is laughing, playing with a wooden doll. A soldier lifts her by the ankles. He swings her head against the marble wall. Once, twice. Caesonia is stabbed to death on the floor beside her daughter's broken body. The Julio-Claudian bloodline, so carefully preserved, so violently protected, is extinguished in a pool of blood on a cold stone floor. Rome does not mourn. The Senate meets in emergency session. Caligula's name is erased from all public monuments. His statues are torn down. His laws are annulled. Damnatio memoriae, condemnation of memory, as if he never existed, as if Rome can forget. The historians will spend centuries trying to understand him. Was he born a monster, or was he made? Some will point to the illness, the fever in October of 37 AD, and claim it damaged his brain. Encephalitis, perhaps, a tumor, something physical that can be measured, explained, forgiven. Others will look to his childhood, to the death of his father, to the destruction of his family, to the 6 years on Capri, living under Tiberius's roof, watching depravity become routine. Trauma, they will say. He was a victim who became a victimizer. But these explanations feel too simple, too clean. Because what Caligula did was not merely cruel. It was not simply violent or depraved. It was intimate. He did not kill from a distance. He did not delegate his horrors to anonymous executioners in shadowed dungeons. He was present. He touched. He whispered. He watched. He wanted his victims to know it was him, their emperor, their god, who was destroying them. And perhaps that is the most disturbing question of all. Caligula does. Because Caligula's horror was not just what he did. It was how human he remained while doing it. He wept for his sister. He laughed at jokes. He loved his horse. He wrote poetry. He was not a faceless evil. He was a young man who lost everything, inherited ultimate power, and discovered that the only thing more intoxicating than being worshipped as a god is proving that gods need not be good. The question that lingers, the question that Rome could never answer, the question that still echoes through the blood-stained marble of the Palatine Hill is this: if absolute power does not corrupt, if it simply reveals, then what did Caligula's reign reveal about the man? Or worse, what did it reveal about Rome itself?